Hey everyone, welcome back. Harshal here, and I am absolutely thrilled to jump into part 11 of our Physical Therapy Masterclass Explainer with you. Today we're looking at a literal paradigm shift in how we approach medical coding. We're moving way beyond just jotting down physical actions and getting straight to the absolute core of billing. If you've ever felt completely lost by overlapping CPT codes or stressed out about audit risks, don't worry, we're going to decode this whole thing together. Here's our quick roadmap for today's explainer. We'll cover the clinical intent rule, apply it to a benchmark case with an oblique sit-up, go over code selection by intent, look at documentation and audit defense, and wrap up with a preview of the 8-minute rule. All right, Section 1, the clinical intent rule, coding by objective. So according to our source material, the clinical intent rule states that code selection is dictated by the underlying clinical objective, not merely the physical movement itself. Let that sink in for a second. In medical billing, the why always supersedes the what. Honestly, it doesn't really matter what the action looks like from across the room. What actually matters is the clinical rationale behind it. And this perfectly illustrates that divide. It's what the patient does versus why the therapist actually prescribes it. Think about it. Anyone walking through your clinic might see the what, a patient lifting a weight or doing a stretch. But you, the highly skilled clinician, you hold the why. The exact same physical action can be billed completely differently depending on your underlying clinical objective. That right there is the secret to accurate coding. Section 2, our benchmark case, the oblique sit-up. Okay, I want you to just think about this for a second. How do you code an oblique abdominal sit-up? Got a specific code in mind? Well, if you picked just one single code, it's kind of a trick question. It depends entirely on the intent. There really is no single correct answer without context. So we are going to take this exact same physical movement, the oblique sit-up, and pivot it through 3 completely different billing realities just to show you exactly how this rule works in practice. Let's get right into it. Section 3, code selection by intent. Here's our first scenario. Intent 1 is building core strength, endurance, or trunk range of motion. So the patient is doing the oblique sit-up with a very basic physiological improvement in mind. The goal is simply for that muscle to get stronger. Because your objective here is building muscle strength and endurance, you absolutely must bill CPT 97110 for therapeutic exercise. The goal is strictly physiological, right? You're affecting change through clinical skills to improve function. But now let's totally shift the goal. Intent 2. You're guiding the patient through this exact same oblique sit-up, but this time, it's for the purpose of facilitating dissociative movement between the lumbar and thoracic segments to improve proprioception and motor control. Notice that major shift. We aren't just building raw strength anymore. Now we're heavily targeting the nervous system, focusing on balance, coordination, and highly specific movement patterns. And because of this highly specific neurological goal, you are required to bill CPT 97112 for neuromuscular re-education. It is the exact same exercise, but a totally different code. Let's look at one more reality. Intent 3, restoring functional performance for bed mobility and safely getting out of bed. In this scenario, you're using the oblique sit-up as a direct simulation of the physical movement required to get out of bed. It's dynamic, it's rooted in a daily activity, and it's focused purely on real-world functional performance. Because this is a functional goal tied to a real-world activity, you've got to bill CPT 97530 for therapeutic activities. Again, the patient's physical action hasn't changed one single bit, but your clinical intent absolutely transformed the coding. When we look at all 3 of these side by side, the crucial point becomes incredibly obvious. Notice how the CPT code shifts entirely based on your intent. An oblique sit-up for core strength, that's 97110. For proprioception, that's 97112. For functional bed mobility, that's 97530. Your clinical intent is literally the compass that guides your coding. Moving on to Section 4, documentation and audit defense. This part is so important. Documenting the why prevents downcoding, time bundling, and those dreaded payer audit clawbacks. If your daily encounter notes are vague and just say something like, patient performed oblique sit-ups, 3 sets of 10, an auditor is going to default to the lowest valued code, or they might just bundle it entirely. You are leaving your practice totally exposed to financial and compliance dangers if you don't explicitly state your objective right there in the chart. So, according to the source guidelines, a bulletproof medical record needs to do a few very specific things. First off, you need to paint a picture of the impairments that actually require skilled intervention. Then, describe their prior functional level. Third, vividly describe the skilled nature of your treatment. I mean, what are you doing while they do that sit-up? And finally, justify the medical necessity of the type, frequency, and duration of the care. You really have to constantly document your intentions if you want to survive an audit. Section 5. A quick preview of the 8-minute rule. The number 8. It is hands down the most infamous number in physical therapy billing. It pretty much dictates everything about time-based coding. In Part 12, we are going to crack it wide open. We'll be covering time bundling rules, exactly how to calculate total time, CMS thresholds, and honestly, the trickiest part of the whole shebang, how to allocate remaining minutes across different codes. You definitely won't want to miss how we properly allocate these 15-minute blocks to ensure you're fully compliant and getting reimbursed accurately for the skilled care you provide. So ask yourself, are you leaving money on the table? Or worse, basically inviting an audit just by leaving the why out of your notes? Think about how just a few simple words of clinical intent can totally protect your practice. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Decode Healthcare with Harshal.